Greetings, everyone. We'll get started. My name is Mélanie Pronovo. I'm recently the Director of Refugees, Employment and Language Policy in the Settlement and Integration sector of Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship Canada. I'm really pleased to be here today, and thanks for inviting me to the Pathways to Prosperity National Conference. I'm, kind of sad. It's unfortunate that we're not able to meet in person, but I am thrilled that organizers have worked so hard to prepare such a great virtual event. I'm here with colleagues to speak to you today about career pathways and employment services interventions for racialized newcomer women. We're going to share research findings with you and real experiences, challenges, and success stories. I'm pleased to have the opportunity to co-present with experts from the Ywca, Achēv, and Social Research and Demonstration Corporation. Before we begin, I would like to acknowledge that I'm joining you today from Ottawa, which is the traditional unceded territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe Nation, who have lived on this land since time immemorial. Land acknowledgements are common nowadays, but I see them as an opportunity to recognize that settler relationships to both the land and the peoples of this land have been broken and misused. And I wish here to affirm my commitment to unlearning my own biases and learning about how I can prioritize upholding the conditions of the treaties that govern this land. And I invite all fellow settlers to do the same and encourage you to take a moment to think about how you can make a meaningful contribution to the process of reconciliation, both your personal and professional lives. So now to introduce my workshop co-presenters. Julie Rodier is a Senior Research Associate at the Social Research and Demonstration Corporation, or SRDC. She's currently the co-manager of the Career Pathways for Racialized Newcomer Women pilot at SRDC. She has over 10 years of experience collaborating with community stakeholders and carrying out evaluations that are evidence-based and feasible in real-world settings to produce useful and relevant results for stakeholders. Heather Brothers is the project manager for Achēv's Milestone to Employment program. She has 19 years of experience in program development, primarily supporting newcomer women who face multiple barriers. She is creative manager who leads from the front, is highly skilled in employment counseling, career assessment tools, life skill coaching, workshop facilitation, job development, and teaching. Heather has a well-rounded background that includes diploma in career and work counselor program from George Brown College. She holds a psychometric assessments B-level qualification, including certifications in yoga teacher training, health and wellness coaching, and is currently studying project management at Sheridan College. Trang Nguyen is the manager of the Aspire program for newcomer refugee women and the Elevate Skills program for newcomer immigrant women under the Career Pathways for Racialized Newcomer project. Trang is working for the Ywca in Metro Vancouver. She has a master's degree in business administration and 15 years of diverse experience in career development, accounting, and customer service. Trang came to Canada as an immigrant, so she can relate to the challenges that racialized newcomer women face when they come to Canada. She believes that, given the right support, newcomer women can thrive and be an important part of the Canadian labor force. Donc, pour ceux qui participent en français aujourd'hui, sachez que ma langue maternelle est le français et Julie aussi s'exprime en français. Je vous invite à poser vos questions dans la langue officielle de votre choix et nous ferons le nécessaire pour traduire. I would also remind all of you to ask your questions throughout the presentations today by using the Q&A button on the right of your screen. And if applicable, direct your questions to a particular presenter and we'll open up the floor at the end of all of our presentations. Julie, over to you for an introduction of the Career Pathways for Racialized Newcomer Women project.
So welcome to our presentation on employer engagement and the Career Pathways for Racialized Newcomer Women. And before we dive in, I want to acknowledge as well that I'm presenting from the land of the Anishinaabe and Algonquin peoples. So as Melanie mentioned, here is a short overview of our presentation today. And so I'll launch right into to why we're here. So the Career Pathways for Racialized Newcomer Women is a project that comes from the recognition from the Government of Canada that racialized newcomer women face significant barriers to finding and keeping good jobs. And those barriers can include language challenges, a lack of recognition of work experience, weak professional and social networks, a lack of affordable childcare and housing, and gender and race-based discrimination. Newcomer women who are racialized make up about 83% of newcomer women that come to Canada, and they tend to have lower labor market outcomes when you compare them with their male counterparts and with Canadian-born women. And you can see a little bit of that in this slide here. You can see the median employment outcome is different for all these groups and lowest for the racialized newcomer women. So the Career Pathways for Racialized Newcomer Women is a 3+ year pilot funded by IRCC to enhance racialized newcomer women's economic integration into the Canadian labor market. So the goal of the project is to test 4 models of employment services to learn what works to support newcomer women who identify as racialized in finding good quality employment. Silmi Abdullah's keynote address this morning highlighted the need for a gender lens approach, and this project focuses on providing services to racialized newcomer women and on addressing inequities in the labor market. Today, we will be speaking about 2 innovative employment programs that are being tested as part of this pilot. And the project is comprised of 11 interventions piloted by 8 service providers across Canada. And here you can see them listed on this list here on this slide. And SRDC, the organization that I work for, is responsible for the design, implementation, and evaluation of the program. So here you can see a continuum of the 4 piloted employment service models. So the models aim to address one or more of the major barriers that racialized newcomer women face in their search for employment, as well as in job retention. So collectively, the 4 models that you see on this slide address the continuum of distance between people and the labor market. So each model targets a specific population of newcomer women based on how distant they are from employment. And each model is designed to address barriers to help these specific populations get closer and or into the labor market. So I have highlighted here 2 of them, these 2, and I will provide a brief overview before Heather and Trang dive deeper into what these programs actually are. So Model 1, which we call Milestones to Employment, is a demand-led model that takes it's a model that takes a demand-led approach to jobs in high-growth industries and sectors. So this model provides participants with learning pathways to gain employment in a specific sector or with a specific employer by the completion of multiple intermediate steps, or as we call them, milestones, which lead to desired employment outcomes. So the program aims to facilitate and support the transition to a work placement with the ultimate goal of continued employment and advancement. So this program aligns the training needs of the newcomer women as well as those of the employers in those specific sectors to make sure that the program, that the job placements that are part of the program are beneficial for both the employers and the job seekers. So key components of this model include employer engagement, which includes needs assessment of that employer, employment readiness training for participants, occupation-specific training, a work placement or a work experience, and ongoing individualized support to both the newcomer women and employers. And as I mentioned before, this model is designed for racialized newcomer women who are relatively distant from the labor market. The other model that we'll talk about today is Model 4, Building Canadian Work Experience. So this model was designed to create paid short-term employment to assist unemployed newcomer refugee women to gain meaningful work experience. It's aimed at enhancing the participants' employment employability readiness, skills, workplace culture knowledge, and networks by providing a Canadian workplace opportunity. Since the program was designed for refugee women with multiple barriers, the program is not necessarily intended to provide a work experience commensurate with experience. The Canadian work experience was meant as a step forward in integrating into the labor market. So some of the key components of this model are employment readiness training, a paid work placement through a wage subsidy, ongoing individualized support. And as I mentioned, it was designed for newcomer refugee women who identify as being racialized. And here you go, Heather.
Thank you so much, Julie. And thanks for your help with the slides today. So I work for Achēv, and I'm the project manager for the Model 1 Milestones to Employment program for visible minority newcomer women, racialized women. I would also like to take time to acknowledge the land that I live and work on, even virtually, as part of the treaty lands and territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit, the land on which the region of Peel and the regional municipality of Halton operates is rich in history and modern traditions of many First Nations and Métis people. We also acknowledge that the Anishinaabeg, the Attawandaran, Haudenosaunee, Huron-Wendat, and the Métis people, these lands surrounding the Great Lakes, are steeped in Indigenous history. We're grateful to have the opportunity to work on this land, and by doing so, give our respect to the first inhabitants. We are dedicated to honoring Indigenous history and culture and committed to moving forward in the spirit of reconciliation and respect with all First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people. We also acknowledge that we are all treaty people, including those who came here as settlers, such as myself, as immigrants either in this generation or in generations past, and those of us who come here involuntarily, particularly as a result of the transatlantic slave trade. We pay tribute to those ancestors of those African Indigenous of origin and descent. And next slide, please. So today in my presentation, I will give you an overview of the Milestones to Employment program, share with you some client testimonials, talk about the training that we deliver and how we engage with employers, because part of our training and program involves a work placement component. I'll also share with you what we found that works really well, so some of our best practices, especially in engaging with employers and in working with women who have multiple barriers to employment. So you get to hear a bit about our challenges and some lessons that we've learned. And I'll go for the next slide. To share with you, Achēv, we have a strong background. We're a charitable organization. We deliver employment, newcomer, language training, youth services. We also work closely and collaboratively with employers and with our community partners to ensure that everyone, whether it's a job seeker or an employer or another service provider, that we work with them to support them in the work that they do, and they have the capacity, especially to employ others. The Milestones to Employment is a pilot project, as Julie mentioned, as part of the career pathways for racialized women. And the focus is on providing employment services and supports to women who are not working or who work, say, for 20 hours or less, and helping them, enter or re-enter the job market. We also often refer to this program as M2E, and as Julie said, it is a demand-led approach where we interface with particular industries, and we've developed training to match the needs, the hiring needs of those employers, so that these women that we're supporting definitely are equipped and ready for jobs in the senior care sector, specifically retirement and long-term care. So some of the eligibility requirements, individuals must identify as a visible minority newcomer to Canada. They have to be either a permanent resident or a convention refugee. Of course, they need to have a social insurance number because they are employed and paid by the employers. And they need to have a minimum language level, Canadian language benchmark of 4 or higher. What we have found when we work with individuals whose language level is below 3, they're not able to successfully complete some of the occupation-specific training. So this language benchmark is quite important, part of the criteria in our selection process. So far, since September of 2020 to October 2021, we have delivered 6 cohorts. The first 2 cohorts were focused on two streams. One was commercial cleaning, the other was food services. However, due to the pandemic, especially when it hit hard in March, we had to really change and look at what is another high growth industry that has a strong hiring demands that we could adapt and sort of change our curriculum and focus towards, and that was on food services, specifically in the senior care industry. For the commercial cleaning, after the 4 weeks of training, there was an additional 2-week occupation-specific training provided in a simulated work environment, and this was really mainly to teach the participants the differences between light-duty cleaning and heavy-duty cleaning, and of course safety, things of that sort. And unfortunately, when we entered into cohort 2, we were not able to continue with the occupation-specific training or commercial cleaning sector. After the training, the participants move on to 12-week paid job placements. And right now, 4 of our placements have been the senior care. So a little bit about the milestones and the different components. First, of course, there is an intake and assessment process. And in addition to the eligibility, we really look for women who have a passion for working, with elderly people or working in the senior care industry, and who really seem like they are naturally inclined or showing an interest and passion for that. Once they are accepted into the program, we offer 4 weeks of training. Of course, predominantly it's been delivered online because of the pandemic. We have a lot of occupation-specific components, and we bring in specialized experts and trainers to deliver that, which has been a huge enhancement. And then our applicants or clients are ready to move on to their 12-week paid work placement. So that's an important milestone in the delivery of our programming. And our goal is that women who complete the work placement maintain employment and go on to have a career in a new industry. Okay, and a little bit more about our training. Of course, there's job search training as part of the curriculum, workplace training. We really make sure that we take a lot of time to focus on the employer expectations, and that goes hand in hand with the occupation-specific training, but certainly understanding essential skills in the workplace, how to prepare yourself for an interview, and also how to have a successful onboarding experience when you're starting a new job, and what to expect in the workplace, and how every workplace has a different type of work culture and reporting system and structure. So we try to offer a lot of workplace preparation training. And of course, what we've noticed as well is a lot of these women have had challenges, and so self-esteem, self-confidence, assertiveness are definitely some areas where they need upskilling and building those type of skills and confidence, to complete a program, to successfully be able to learn and then market yourself and go out into a job and have the hands-on the job training. So we make sure that whatever our clients are facing, we try to adapt our life skills component and offer workshops that meet their needs or fill in some of the gaps. And then the occupation-specific training we deliver through Ywca, Ontario Retirement Communities Association. There's 21 mandatory and basic compliance training that are delivered through online modules. We also cover food handler certification for level 1. And in addition to that, we offer Smart Serve certification for women who are interested in that certificate, because with that certificate, actually, one could receive a higher wage or potentially get more hours on the work placement because of the Smart Serve certification. And for the 12-week work placement component in senior care, some of our top employers to date are Rivera, Lifetime Living, Compass Canada, Verve Senior Care, and we've recently partnered with a home care provider called Bayshore Health, and we're ongoingly building new relationships with employers and really maintaining and strengthening our existing partnership. That's been an important part of this project as well, which I'll share more about a bit later. Some of the job titles that we focus on in the senior care industry particularly are dietary aid. That's the number one. I'd say 90% of our clients are placed as a dietary aid in a long-term care or nursing home residence. Or dining service attendant is another type of position, resident support aid. And we do a lot of screening requirements, so all participants complete a criminal reference check or vulnerable sector check. They have to show and demonstrate TB tests, and now COVID testing. Some of the duties, of course, that dining aid or dining service attendant would perform would be plating and serving food and cleanup. That's another important component, as well as, again, that customer service, being able to be supportive to seniors, socialize with them, help them with some other activities of daily living like grooming, even feeding in some cases. And usually the starting salary wage is minimum wage, but some retirement residences pay a lot higher, 16, 18, even up to $20 an hour. We also provide transportation support to all of the participants while they are participating in their part or full-time 12-week paid work placement. So that's another good resource that helps. And to work as a dietary aide, what we've really discovered is there's a lot of benefits to it. For one, the hours are flexible. It's kind of like a fast track to an entry-level job in the senior care for women who've maybe never worked or have never worked in Canada. So again, it's an opportunity to get some training in a new industry, in a part of our job market where there'll always be a hiring demand, of course, because we have such a high aging population. Employers also have a wonderful employee first policy. So they are able to, they look for people who want to grow in this profession and even reimburse participants for those who go on to food service worker training and get a diploma. The tuition's reimbursed, of course, after the certification is completed. That's a fantastic perk. And a lot of the women and people who work in senior care really report a deep level of job satisfaction and fulfillment and really enjoy the work. This is a testimonial from a participant from cohort 3 who found work with our support, of course, working as a dietary aide at Compass Group of Canada in Brampton, Ontario. And Tool says, "Hello, my name is Tool. To begin with, thanks to the Achēv who helped support me through the most difficult times and helped me find a job. Thanks to Mona, Ali, Solomon, Thomas, Atishri, and the whole Achēv team who provided me with good experiences. I got my first job and certificate as a food handler through Achēv. They made sure that I had training, I gained a lot of experience, and they kept in touch with me to make sure I wasn't struggling through my job. I'm glad that I met the team and great classmates to support me. I really liked the organization and collaboration of the whole team during the project. Due to the help of Achēv, I am now working as a dietary aide in Compass Group Canada. And one of the things that I received support with was also English speaking and learning skills that made sure they provided me with resources to help me improve." So Tool is still employed and working, and I guess, is doing a fantastic job with one of our top employers. So to kind of talk about, with employer engagement, how it started, and I'll take you up to where it is right now, which is a really, really great place. Initially, when this project was developed, again, it was supposed to focus on commercial cleaning and food service industry. So Achēv's business development team actually built some strong relationships in the commercial cleaning industry and food services sector, and they brought on 2 to 3 employers who committed to offering work placements to anywhere from 3 to 5 M2E program participants. And these employers were like champions for the cause. They were willing, and they in fact signed contracts, memorandum of understanding with us, which outlined our responsibilities, the training that we delivered, the support that we provided, and their commitment to hiring 3 to 5 participants each cohort if they had a hiring need. So, during that process, and when we had to pivot and change completely because of the negative impacts of the pandemic on the food service industry and commercial cleaning industry, the team worked again with the senior leaders at Achēv, and they started to focus on senior care industry. So they looked at where could we take, say, food service worker training and certification and apply it. And that's really where, through interviewing employers, contacting employers, and conducting what really is like an informational meeting and interview to really learn about the industry, the hiring needs, the pain points, the opportunities, the recruitment process, the key skills and certifications that are required in the senior care. We discovered that dietary aide is a position in which there are ongoing, recruiting for this particular role. So we were able to adapt our training. And then the team just started, as you would as a job developer, outreaching retirement home residences, and not then throughout Peel, but the entire GTA, because since we've offered the program virtually, we could expand our employer base and reach out and build more relationships with employers, so that as we're moving on with each and every cohort, we're building more opportunities and placements, because we didn't want to also rely on the 3 key employers that, you know, made a commitment to hire and offer 3 to 5 placements. Sometimes they didn't need to hire 5 people. So we had to ensure that we had a variety and a robust amount of employers in the project to support the work placement. So basically, you know, how did we engage with employers? It just took a lot of research, a lot of cold calling, a lot of reaching out. And because that industry already had high demands in hiring, the talent acquisition specialists, the recruiters, the HR people were happy to speak to us. But I have to say the employer engagement part was a bit easier because the hiring needs are so high. It's much more difficult to try to build relationships in industries where the hiring demand is very competitive. In this case, it's you need a high school diploma and an interest in working with seniors. And what we were able to do through speaking with employers and through partnering with Ywca was to learn about, well, what are the key training that we could provide. And so we established an agreement with Ywca and purchased seats in their online training platform, which is 21 modules. It provides training in like fall prevention, injury prevention, safe food handling practices, mental health and well-being of residents, behavior management, just to name 6 or 7 of the 21 modules. And that was one of the most attractive features that employers wanted when they're hiring people, because it would make their training and onboarding that much faster. So we really learned and researched by talking to employers, and that allowed us then to build relationships, to keep them up to date on the cohorts that we were delivering, and when we had candidates ready for placement. So that's kind of how we focused on that, and how we learned about what the key needs are and the pain points for employers who are hiring, you know, food service workers, dietary aides in the senior care industry. What worked really well, because of the strong understanding that we gained from, you know, the employer research, were that coaches in this project were able to really prepare participants well. So when they would refer a candidate to an employer that we had built a relationship with, they not only sent their resume, they sent proof of their Ywca training, they sent a copy of their food handler certificate, copy of their TB tests, vulnerable sector check, and confirmation of COVID testing. So the employer was basically given not just a highly skilled, qualified, job-ready candidate, but all of the documentation that it would take an HR person maybe a week or 2 to gather. We provided it up front. This has been outstanding, and employers just love us for that, and they now rely on us whenever they need to hire, because we know we're fast, and we understand what their needs are, so we provide them with all those documents up front. Employers also, you know, again, we're really interested in supporting women, racialized women. So we invite them for every cohort. Usually there's one employer expert or guest talk, someone from the industry who gives a nice overview of working in the senior care industry. And this really helps, you know, our participants get more inspired and motivated. And it also helps that employer to, again, interface with us, get to know us, meet new participants. When they have hiring needs, we're top of mind. So this is a really wonderful thing and relationship that goes beyond just referring candidates to employers, but they're engaged and part of our program and training. They also provide mock interview sessions to our participants. So once again, they get to pre-screen and pre-meet some potential candidates through our program. The coaches that work with this project really work very, very closely with each participant. They provide a high level of one-on-one support. Anytime a client has a challenge or a barrier, the coach is ready and available to help and support them through that, which is really unique. So I would say our promptness with employers, having a designated staff member is really important, because if you've worked in employment or staffing, when a person needs to hire, a company needs to hire, they act fast. They want resumes and people now. So we are very quick in our response and turnaround time with employers. We keep our database up to date with resumes and candidates, and we're ready to immediately refer a candidate to an employer at all times. And now, as I've said, employers prefer the M2E program because of the direct communication the effective training that we've created and provided, and the high level of support from the coaches who, in a way, are like a recruiter or job developer. Some of the feedback that we've received has been outstanding. I mean, one talent management coordinator from Lifetime Living Inc., Logan Brown, shared that the M2E coaches are amazing. They keep in contact, provide quick responses, and just overall are lovely to work with. The next testimonial is from Jasleen, talent sourcing agent at Rivera Inc., and we work with all of Rivera's locations throughout the GTA. The experience with M2E candidates has been exceptional. The candidates come in with great energy, a willingness to learn, and are committed to making a difference in the lives of seniors. It has been a great pleasure to see the increase in confidence of the candidates during mock interviews and the success that they've had when they interview with hiring managers. This program is great, and I know as a company, we are proud to be partnering with it. The project really does every step well, from ORCA training to helping assist candidates with their food handler certificate, as well as providing support with onboarding. It really ensures a smooth transition and easy transferable skills to make the move of the candidates into a dietary aid more seamless. Most of the candidates are eager to learn and commit to their time and effort to the retirement residences. We are always happy to place M2E candidates at our sites. So that's just, I mean, outstanding feedback from employers. So Compass Canada would be our main employer. They seem to have the most hiring needs. And then it would be Rivera. So they've been our top 2 employer champions. 94% of clients who have been placed in the senior care industry actually want to continue. And so many of them do continue work. So this isn't just a placement, it's also a sustainable employment opportunity. So that's been really great to see over the cohorts. And the salary range, as I said, it starts at minimum wage, but we've had some employers who offer $20 an hour. So that's such huge value to take a 4-week training program, get offered $20 per hour, and then $25 often in continued employment. So after that 12-week placement is completed, when that milestone's been reached, often the salary is increased, which is absolutely wonderful. And you just heard about the wonderful employer testimonials. So 69% of the clients found jobs directly related to either the commercial cleaning in the beginning or the senior care sector, which 4 cohorts have been delivered. 22.2% found jobs in a field that's related to the stream and training. So for example, one of our participants found a job as a food service worker for a childcare center, for a daycare, a licensed daycare. Even though that's not senior care, she did get the job because of the food handler certificate training and the onboarding process. We continued to even help that employer, although it wasn't in one of our senior care connections. And 8.8 found employment in their desired or alternative career after completing the 4-week training and gaining the certificates. And our staff would work just as much with that person and help place them in the job that they decided to pursue instead of, say, dietary aid and senior care. So the employment successful outcomes have been quite high. I think some of the employer placement challenges honestly have more to do with the client barriers and challenges that racialized women face. And in this case, because of the lower language levels, we've seen challenges with clients' digital skills, and it's made virtual training and onboarding time-consuming. So this is where coaches have to work and spend a lot more time in helping people send their applications and support them even when they first start the job. Also during COVID, we've partnered with Ywca, which is a home-based childcare provider in Ontario, and they had limited daycare options. So we weren't able to help facilitate, childcare, unfortunately, in this situation. So some people had to start their placements later. And some of the challenges too, if a shift is really early in the morning and one of our participants has to take their kids to school or daycare, they may not be able to start a shift until 9 a.m. when the nursing home requires them to start at 7:30 a.m. So that's presented challenges as well. Some of the other challenges faced by women is a conflict in prioritizing their new career over their family responsibilities. So sometimes we would see and have to have a lot of conversations about that. We've also helped women who are going through divorce, domestic violence, safety, personal safety concerns, separation, single parenting challenges, unstable housing. We've had women whose family have interfered and not wanted them to go to work, especially during COVID, and especially go to work in a senior care residence where, we know in Ontario first when COVID hit, it was in that that population was hit quite hard. So there was a lot of fear. I will skip ahead this. This is a sample of one particular client who had childcare. But I would say overall the lessons learned when working with racialized women is that they need multiple interventions. So even though you may prepare exceptional training that meets the needs of hiring employers, sometimes there's still a delay in entering the workforce because of personal barriers, and they have to be resolved. It's also very important to have a designated staff. In our case, we have workplace or workforce development coaches, and we identified one coach in particular who had a sharp skill set for recruiting. It just came natural to her, and she was the main point of contact when employers reached out to us for their hiring needs. Overall, as I said, employers in this industry are very supportive, so we found that kind of easy. It made the relationship building and the outreach in the beginning a lot easier and seamless. And because our clients, their language levels, they weren't as active on social media, we really had to make sure we had a strong promotion and marketing and outreach strategies in place so that we could attract and recruit the right participants to train and then place with employers. Again, I think I've touched on some of the lessons learned, but how we conducted our recruiting and marketing and outreach and promotion, often it was through word of mouth. So a participant would refer a friend, a bit of a buddy system. That person would attend the training with her friend. So every cohort, we noticed that, as one woman would join the program, she would invite her friends as well. That helped. We also use our online workshop calendar at Achēv to deliver, want to work as a dietary aid. So 4 to 5 weeks before a cohort would begin, we would deliver this information session, and that really helped us get in touch with newcomer women who were curious about working in this type of job and in this industry. And we have really strong relationships with our community partners. We have a online and in-person newcomer information center. We get a lot of referrals from that. We have a lot of newcomer women and their families accessing that. So it's helped us a lot in our recruitment. So this is actually a photo. It was a presentation delivered by 2 staff of Ywca. We have Jessica and Aaron, and this is where they come in every cohort and deliver an overview of careers in the retirement and senior care sector. And we just have our next slide, which is our last. So I'd like to say thank you. It's really been an honor to work with IRCC and SRDC and my team in this project. And we know the research gathered here will help provide, information to government and settlement agencies about the best ways and the most effective ways in supporting racialized newcomer women in finding and keeping jobs. Thanks again.
We'll turn over to Trang now. If Trang, there you are. Over to you.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for choosing this session. I would like to express my gratitude to be here today. I'm speaking to you from Vancouver, BC, on the ancestral and unceded territories of the Squamish, Tsleil-Waututh, and Musqueam nations. As Melanie mentioned, I was the program manager of Model 2, the Elevate Skills program for newcomer immigrant women, and Model 4, the Aspire program for newcomer refugee women under the Career Pathways for Visible Minority Newcomer Women pilot project. So before we go into details, I would like to provide an overview of the 2 projects that I was involved with. Model 2, Navigating the Canadian Labor Market. This model was promoted under the name the Elevate Skills Program. As Julie mentioned, this model was designed to assist self-identifying immigrant women in navigating the Canadian labor market and secure meaningful careers through assessment of their skills and provide them opportunities to connect with potential employers. Highlights of the program were 3 weeks of part-time online workshops on the Canadian labor market and job search strategies, essential skills portfolio building and training, and one-to-one career advising for 13 weeks. This model identifies employer connections and establishes employer interest in contributing to the program. Participants engaged in activities that involved direct employer connections, such as attending guest speakers events at the center, receiving opportunities for informational interviews, connecting with potential mentorship opportunities, and receiving job posting from staff. This model was delivered under two streams. Stream A, without employer engagement activities for cohorts 1 to 5, and Stream B, with employer engagement activities for cohorts 6 to 10. From our observation, except for those who could not continue with the program, 100% of the participants attended guest speakers networking events. The second project that I was involved with since the beginning of the Career Pathways project was Model 4, Building Canadian Work Experience, which was promoted under the name the Aspire program. This model was designed to create paid short-term jobs to assist unemployed newcomer refugee women in gaining meaningful work experience with organizations in the nonprofit sector and for-profit sector. The program highlights were 6 weeks of group-based employment workshops, up to 12 weeks of paid work placement with organizations in Metro Vancouver, and the 75% wage subsidy for employers. Participants also received other wraparound support services, including bus pass for the training and work placement phase, child minding support, essential work clothing, and food support. There are several best practices for employer engagement in employment services for racialized newcomer women that I would like to highlight here. The first practice was to reach out to employers via social media and invite them to come to the program as guest speakers. There were several benefits of this practice. For example, the employer would provide participants with updates about the labor market, as well as direct feedback about in-demand qualifications and skills for the women to set their short-term and long-term goals. Most of the time, the employers also came to our programs and shared job openings that they were hiring for with our participants. The second best practice was to attend job fairs and community events with our participants, either in person or virtually. This way, our women would feel more confident and supported to connect with the employers who also attended these events. Of course, the pandemic made this practice more difficult, as many of these events were switched from in-person to virtual. However, we tried to make the best of the situation and connected with many employers through this practice. Another practice was to collaborate with other departments within the YWCA, such as our fund development and marketing teams and other immigrant-serving organizations. This practice helped ensure that our participants receive the wraparound support that they need to enhance their self-esteem, improve their employability, and be able to land a job. Last but not least, it was cold calling and emailing employers. This popular method allowed us to reach out to employers who were hiring and emphasize our participants' skills and abilities, and for Model 4 to highlight the 75% wage subsidy that we offered to the employers for up to 12 weeks. This method proved to be very effective. Despite those best practices, we still faced several challenges along the way. The first and ongoing challenge was the global COVID-19 pandemic. Not only did it make connecting with the employers more difficult due to physical distancing and the social lockdown periods, but employers also reported that they did not feel comfortable hiring participants from the program when they had to lay off many of their own employees. Another huge challenge for employee engagement was the multiple barriers to employment that newcomer women faced. Those are lack of the language skills, lack of Canadian education and work experience, child-minding issues, unstable housing, lack of network and support system. Before the basic needs are met, it is impossible for the women to focus on job search and engage with employers. Getting the buy-in and support from employers was the next challenge that we encountered. We have met with many supportive employers who want to help us with the work that we do. However, they express concerns about the paperwork required in the process, concern about our participants' ability to perform the work, to speak the language fluently, and their understanding about the Canadian workplace culture. Managing expectations from both the employers and the participants was another challenge. Employers would expect that the participants can speak English very well, they can fit in with their team, and participants would expect to find a job that is equivalent to what they were doing back home without having to obtain Canadian training and certificates. They would not settle for entry-level jobs in some cases. And because of those reasons, it was often difficult to find a match. It's challenging to find participants with the specific skill set that the employers are looking for. And also it's not easy to find the ideal employers who would be supportive, understanding, accommodating, who would offer the job to our women without Canadian education and experience. It happens, but it's very rare. Another challenge that I want to emphasize here is to be able to be the liaison between the employers and the clients when miscommunication happens. Often we would hear about an incident at work several days and sometimes several weeks after they had happened, and therefore it was difficult for us to provide effective resolution. After 2 years, we learned many valuable lessons that will allow us to provide better services to racialized newcomer women in particular and other job seekers in general. We learned that in order for us to work successfully with the newcomer women and provide the right support to them, we need to have a client-centered approach. By getting to know the participants, their abilities, barriers, and hopes, we can provide emotional support, employment coaching, and job search support to help them move forward in their life and career. We learn to build good relationships with employers on a regular basis, as we don't know when we can match the employers to our participants. We also learn to utilize any resources available, such as wage subsidy, low-cost personal counseling, free webinars and workshops in the community. Thanks to technology like Zoom, Microsoft Teams, and other applications, when the pandemic happened, we were able to switch from in-person program delivery to virtual delivery within a very short period of time and minimize the interruption to program delivery. Another lesson was to build reliable and comprehensive support system for participants so they will be assisted at every phase of the settlement and employment journey. These would include food support, childminding, housing, free English classes, and many more. In order for us to do that, we need to collaborate with other organizations and partners to maximize the outcomes. These are the immigrant serving organizations, public libraries, community centers, churches, housing organizations, and so on. Next, I would like to share some successes that we were able to achieve with the two models. We were able to invite many employers to participate in the program regularly. What you are seeing here is the list of guest speakers that Model 2 team was able to connect with and invite to our program in a particular month. So as you can see, more than 10 employers came to our program in a month. And this is thanks to the development of technologies like Zoom and Teams. This shows that the employers generally want to give back to the community and support newcomers to Canada. Also, dozens of participants from Model 2 secured employment in line with their career goals, and for others, their very first Canadian work experience, such as medical office administrator, employment specialist, junior accountant, pharmacy assistant, and receptionist. For Model 4, 64% of the participants were placed in a full-time or part-time positions. That means 44 out of 69 active participants were placed. As a result, almost 55% of the participants became financially independent after the program ended. That means 19 out of 35 individuals no longer receive income assistance or resettlement assistance program benefits after the completion of the Aspire program. We had employers who hired participants from multiple cohorts as they were satisfied with their skills and qualifications and the attitude at work. One employer even mentioned that we were able to help them with their hiring needs better than their agent. I would like to share a few testimonials that we received. This is the testimonial from a Model 2 participant. This was my first day at the office, and I absolutely loved everything about my new position. And I'm so happy that I landed a job I targeted for so long. The job that I can apply all my skills and experiences and be in the direction of continuous learning. Today, for the first time after 2.5 years, I had the feelings that I got myself back after struggling with all those challenges and unknowns I have been through as a new immigrant. The feeling that I am finally officially settled and rooted in my new home. And another testimonial from a Model 4 participant. In our online workshops, I met other women with similar background, and it makes it easier to know that you are not alone. I got a reason to wake up every day. I expanded my network through this program. Not only I got amazing mentor, but I also gained friends. After 3 weeks attending this program, I was already feeling different, feeling happy, and having confidence that I can set goals and achieve them, something that I didn't believe in anymore. I would like to end my presentation by expressing our sincere gratitude to IRCC and SRDC for providing the career pathway for the Visible Minority Newcomer Women pilot project so that many newcomer women received the support they needed to settle down in their new home country. And thank you for giving us, the YWCA Metro Vancouver, the chance to be part of this meaningful project. Thank you very much for your time and listening.
Thanks, Trang. I will just share my presentation. I just have a few slides before passing it to Melanie. Okay, so I've already spoken a little bit. I just want to take a few minutes to talk about some of the findings from the research side. You may have heard some from Heather and Trang, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on here, but I kind of want to give you a little bit of a bigger perspective. So in terms of employers engaged in the pilot, as explained by my co-presenters Heather and Trang, there's many ways in which employers were engaged in their programs. And based on interviews that we did with staff and with employers, we've identified a number of ways in which employers were involved. So it could be in identifying in-demand sectors and available opportunities, having some input in curriculum design and program marketing, hiring participants through those work placements or work experiences, participating in informational interviews, being guest speakers during the employment readiness training. And as you can see here, so overall the 4 programs engaged at least 102 employers. So, and here I'm focusing mostly on Models 1, which was implemented in 3 sites, and Model 4, which was implemented in the Y, as Trang just explained. So, and this number, like 102 employers, that's huge, but that's likely an underestimation since this is mostly those that have provided work placements. So there are more, and we will be looking into more details as to how many of those it is. As I mentioned, we interviewed employers from models 1 and 4 who had hired the highest number of participants from each of those programs. And as you heard from Heather and Trang, the most of the participants that these employers hired for the work placement met their needs because participants were well prepared for the interview process and for the job. The sites, like the service providers, worked closely with several employers to set up work placement opportunities. And as Heather mentioned, some of those employers even put in place a different hiring process for participants from these programs, but this was not the case for all employers. From these interviews, some of the challenges that were highlighted by employers included differing expectations between the employee versus the employer, for example, and this was especially true at the beginning, but employers reported that some of the participants' expectation of the work placement were somewhat misaligned to what they were offering. So for example, participants wanting a full-time placement, but the placement was part-time or casual. There's also competing priorities, and you heard this in the presentation of my co-presenters here, that participants play many roles in their lives, including for some caretaker of the family, and for some participants they had to cut back on hours or delay work placements due to personal reasons. And some employers, but few, mention that there is at times lack of communication with program staff, or if not a lack of, sometimes miscommunication between them and the program staff about expectations or about the hiring process. Despite these challenges, most employers that we spoke with reported that the program contributed to their business goals, and in that they were able to receive candidates with the skills and expertise that were required, and that participants had their required documents in place for when that was needed. Employers also spoke about being able to fill in skill gaps within their workplace by hiring participants from the program. And some also spoke about being able to hire skilled employees in minimal time, which enhanced their business goals. So one of the outcomes that we were looking at is whether the program enhances employers' cultural competency, and employers appreciated being able to add to the diversity of employees within their workplace. But for many, they said that the program had little to no effect in this regard because they were already a diverse workplace and or had prior experience with hiring newcomers. But overall, most employers interviewed were satisfied with their participation in the program and would recommend the program to other employers. And here's a quote, and I'll end it here so that we can have time to hear from Mélanie.
Thank you so much, Julie. And everyone you've heard today, not only at today's keynote from Ms. Abdallah, but also my co-presenters, that there are many barriers that racialized newcomer women face. There are multiple sources of data and anecdotes that show that we need to do more to support those that are the most marginalized in Canada. And the pandemic has brought this evidence to light that much more. So in terms of employer engagement in services directed to racialized newcomer women, I'm really hopeful that these efforts will go some way to make a difference in their lives. So as mentioned earlier, we launched the Racialized Newcomer Women pilot in 2018, and the purpose was both to directly serve racialized newcomer women, who, as we know, face additional barriers to accessing the labor market, but also to broadly strengthen employment-related programming as a whole, and the work that Achēv and Ywca, along with the leadership of SRDC, have spoken to you about today, is really hoping to help and strengthen programming to build the evidence base. This pilot has a robust evaluation and measurement framework that will be used to report on the outcomes of for racialized newcomer women and determine the effectiveness of these different employment interventions for those vulnerable clients. So employers, as you've heard, and is obvious, play a fundamental role in supporting newcomer settlement integration into Canadian society. And we've been focusing efforts to invest resources on engaging employers to help the newcomers' outcomes. And it's done by, in mainly two ways, as discussed in the models today. One, through funding of service provider organizations, programming that connects newcomers with employers, as you've heard, mentoring, job matching, networking events, and work placements. And then also by investing resources and engaging with employers to promote the benefits of hiring newcomers and supporting their ability to effectively recruit, onboard, and train them. We obviously can't lose sight of the enormous benefits that immigration presents to a prosperity and way of life, and the fact that newcomers bring with them heritage and culture and talent, perspectives, ideas, and a diversity in that sense. So it's really vital that employers turn their minds to these benefits. I'll quickly mention that under our service delivery improvement funding that we just launched, 10 employer engagement projects will be launched very, very shortly. A few examples include a project by World Skills Employment Center that will test the value of increased sector-specific employer involvement in the design of training and outreach strategies to bridge the gap between employable newcomers and sectors in need of labor. And Ywca will test an innovative model for partnering with employers, incorporating AI, so artificial intelligence-powered skills, analysis tools, and the development of personalized paths for employment integration and skills. As you surely know, we fund a full array of settlement programming to deliver services to create welcoming communities. Importantly, our model is built on a whole of society approach that connects Canadians and newcomers, and one of our objectives is actually provided for in our legislation, is to promote the successful integration of permanent residents to Canada while recognizing that integration involves mutual obligations for both immigrants and Canadians. So really, we feel that a strength of our programming is built on third-party delivery model, which is really a strength because of the comprehensiveness and community-led services. So more than 500 third-party organizations such as Achēv and Ywca deliver all sorts of services such as needs and assets assessments and referrals, information and orientation services, language services, employment-related community connections, and support services. And just over 41,000 clients were served with employment-related services this past year. So I think I'll end it here. There's more to my slides, but I really want to get to some of the questions that I feel will, benefit the session today. But really, we heard how these unique programs today are having real and tangible impacts on racialized newcomer women, and we think that invaluable impact that sector-specific skills and experience, employment-tailored workplace training and placements have had on employment prospects. And we're really excited to see the continued implementation of these interesting models and the outcomes of this work. And we'll make sure to share this broadly here and in the sector more widely as soon as those are available. So if I turn now to the Q&A, and please feel free to add your questions. We'll try to do this, well, so that we can benefit from the remaining time. So a question from Katrina Mickelson. So how does the low wage impact interest and long-term outcomes? We support a program where job offers were turned down in the end due to low wages, and the women decided to go for jobs in manufacturing and warehouse where the wages were higher and more hours were available. So I'm not sure if I can turn to Heather first and quickly thereafter Trang for some reactions on Katrina's question.
For us in the Milestones to Employment program, wages were rarely an issue. In fact, a lot of the nursing retirement homes pay above minimum wage. So we found that our participants were happy with the starting wage. Most often it was $16 to $18 an hour. Some start at 20, and for 4 weeks of training to kind of get a fast track career in the senior sector. Unfortunately, this is something that fortunately we did not encounter. I mean, sometimes participants wanted more hours. than what the employer was able to offer. So we would help them find another part-time job or look at another residence to see if they could hire that person so that they could get additional hours.
And for us, we learned that low wage does impact long-term outcomes. We have seen many times that we find job placement for our participants, but then they would turn down those opportunities because they need to support their family financially. Receiving wages at $13, $14, or $15 per hour wouldn't be sufficient for them to pay for housing, food, and then healthcare and just well-being for the whole family. In those cases, we really need to work directly with the participants and see where they are at, and then talk about their employment goals. If they are unrealistic, we will have a conversation with the participants, but really we need to have the client center and start from the participants. And because of the reality, we have brought wage subsidy to the program, and then sometimes we encourage the participants to go to the community and volunteer first. Then they will have a chance to be considered for an official job opening.
Thank you so much, Heather and Trang. We'll turn it over now to the next question from Sarah Wayland from Hamilton Immigration Partnership Council. So we know that racialized newcomer women are often underemployed. Are there any programs that work to place them in higher paying work that recognizes their international credentials? And I assume these women would be harder to place. So any reactions on that one?
Actually, I can speak to this one a little bit. In Model 2, our organization, Achēv, is offering career pathways for visible minority newcomer women, racialized women, and they're highly skilled. Language isn't a barrier. Most have a master level of education, and in that project, we work on helping them build their network, because lack of credentials and language isn't really a gap or a barrier. And they're very career-minded and driven, so they're very motivated. But their barrier is they don't have connections in the local job market. They're not part yet of professional associations. Many who moved during COVID, it was harder to network. So we would have online networking events. We started to have hiring events, and that really helped these particular women interface with employers, network, and get jobs in their field. So that program, Career Pathways for Women, has some very strong employed outcomes. So again, seeing it more of a positive. Again, if the right intervention is put into place, so in that case, a lack of a professional network and connections to people in their field in the local job market was the main gap. So we aim to really identify employers that would be willing to network and speak with them, and that overall help their job search success.
And if I may add, as part of the career pathways for racialized newcomer women pilot, there's another model 3 that we haven't touched on, but that's for those women that are quite close to the labor market, but that just need that help in connecting with employers. And these are jobs that this is the program that looks for commensurate employment based on education, experience, and skills for these women.
All right, we'll turn it over to the following question, again from Katrina McKelson from Lutherwood, following Sarah Whalen's question. So either recognizing international credentials or upskilling, for example, for refugee and family class newcomers with no post-secondary education, what is happening to get women get better jobs? So maybe I'll turn it over to Trang for this one first.
Thank you, Melanie. So definitely they need someone to work as an advocate for them. We have seen many women come with very strong skills, good language skills, but at the same time, they need to learn about the Canadian workplace cultures. They need to do job search the Canadian way, if you know what I mean. So a few participants shared with us that they never knew a cover letter before. So they would have a resume to look for a job, but they've never heard of a cover letter. And also when they answer interview questions, they disclose that many questions were different from back home. So for these women, having an employment specialist to support them throughout the job search phase would be very much appreciated. And also in terms of international credentials, it is still one of the barriers that we face, because their credentials and skills and work experience from back home are not recognized in Canada.
And maybe what we'll do is we'll just turn it over to the last question in the interest of time, as I know we're running short. So thank you very much, Ms. Marcelino from the York region. So asking about concerns of long-term de-skilling. So essentially, strategies, to integrate these individuals into professions and occupations, but, women were educated and experienced in back home. So again, about credentials, recognizing those, and long-term de-skilling. Thoughts?
I can speak a little bit to that. So I think the aim of the project was always to help women find commensurate employment. So based on their interests, based on their experience, based on their skills, their experience. So that's why we have different models of different interventions that help women that are not at the same place in their job search. The hope is that when these women are placed into, or when they find employment in these jobs, that there is career advancement opportunities, and that the goal was never to take women who have experience and to place them into jobs that are not in line with that. And hopefully we will be able to have a clear picture of what's happening. We are doing a follow-up survey at 1 year after the program, so we'll be able to see what their employment outcomes are at that.
So thank you all very much for joining us today. Apologies that we're short on time to have a fruitful discussion, but I'm sure that the presentations were quite valuable in terms of the data and stories that came out today. There's really a clear need, as you all see, for this type of programming and gathering of evidence base that's going to serve us to make long-term adjustments to ensure that racialized newcomer women are top of mind for us, and that they continue to have those supports available to them. So my sincere thanks to my co-presenters today that are delivering these essential services to racialized newcomer women, and really looking forward to the progress of the models and the research that will come of it. Thank you again so much today for joining us.
Thanks, everyone.